Imagine a restaurant you used to love. The portions were bigger, the staff knew your name, and then a shift began. The food got smaller, and your favorite waiter disappeared. Prices crept up while quality crept down. Blaming inflation, or just the economy, was a logical start. But the same thing was happening to your dentist, vet, and the nursing home where your grandmother lives, places you wouldn't expect the economy to impact much. The same pattern, across industries that have nothing to do with each other, all around the same time. That's worth being suspicious about. When an identical decline shows up in a dozen unrelated places, something is connecting them. That something is a particular financial strategy. It has a name, it has owners, and there's a decent chance it's pulling money out of some corner of your life right now, quietly, legally, and on purpose. Here's how it works. Start with a question that sounds simple. How do you buy a company you can't actually afford? Say you want a house that costs $1 million, but you only have $100,000. You put your 100 grand down, borrow the other 900,000, and then you make the house itself responsible for the loan. Not you, the house. If it all falls apart, you're out your 100,000, but the house absorbs the rest. Swap the house for a business, a chain of dental clinics, a network of pet hospitals, a beloved regional burger joint. This is a leveraged buyout. And leveraged is just a fancier word for borrowed. A private equity firm puts in a small slice of its own money and borrows the rest. Then it attaches that debt to the company it just bought. The company now has to repay the loan that was used to purchase it. Where the money goes. So the firm owns your favorite business now. Then what? It starts charging the company management fees, often around 2% a year, plus a share of profits, for the privilege of being owned. The company didn't ask for this, but the new owner makes the rules. After that come the consulting fees and the monitoring fees. And sometimes the firm has the company take on even more debt, not to expand or hire, but to pay the firm a large one-time dividend. That maneuver is called a dividend recapitalization. The company borrows millions and hands the borrowed money straight up to its owners. The owners can get paid whether or not the business does well. They've often recovered their original investment long before anyone realizes the company is in trouble. The debt, the fees, and the risk stay behind with the business. This is the part you actually feel. The company is now carrying debt it never wanted, with a large payment due every month. That money has to come from somewhere, so the cutting begins, and there are only so many places to cut. Usually it's staff first. Fewer people per shift, and the experienced ones, who cost more, get traded for cheaper new hires. That's why nobody knows your name anymore. Then the product. Smaller portions, cheaper ingredients, less of everything, not because anyone decided the food should be worse, but because the budget demanded it. Then price. It goes up, because once you've stripped quality about as far as it'll go, charging more is the only lever left. Smaller portions, worse service, higher prices. Some of that genuinely is inflation, but a chunk of it is a debt payment getting passed down to you. In that arrangement, you've quietly stopped being the customer and started being the revenue. It wasn't always like this. Go back to the 1980s, when a wave of financiers latched onto something seductive. You could buy a company, mostly with borrowed money, wring cash out of it, and walk away much richer without risking a lot of your own. Back then, the press called it a corporate raid, which was at least honest about what it was. The appeal was mostly arithmetic. Put in a little, borrow a lot, and if the company gains even modest value, your small slice multiplies. Leverage cuts both ways, though. The same math that magnifies a win magnifies a loss. The difference here is that when it goes badly, the company and its workers usually absorb the damage, not the firm. Corporate raider eventually softened into private equity. Same basic engine, better branding. For a long time, these firms went after big, famous corporations. But those targets were conspicuous. They fought back, made headlines, and attracted regulators. So the playbook shifted. Instead of swallowing one giant company in full public view, the cleverer move was to quietly buy up hundreds of small ones nobody was paying attention to. A firm buys one dental practice, then another, then 40 more, and bolts them together under a single corporate parent with one shared back office. The industry term is a roll-up. To you, they still look like separate small businesses. Local, independent. Your dentist's name is still on the door, but behind it, a distant owner now controls a big share of the options in your area. And when one owner controls most of the choices in a market, it gains real pricing power. It can raise prices because where else are you going to go? This is played out with dentists, veterinarians, emergency rooms, nursing homes, funeral homes, and mobile home parks. The unglamorous, essential corners of life that you can't easily walk away from. That's the uncomfortable part. The targets often aren't luxuries. You can skip a vacation. You can't really skip your mother's nursing home. When the numbers have faces. This stops being abstract fast. Take nursing homes. Researchers have looked at what happens after private equity buys one, and the findings are unsettling. One widely cited study estimated that private equity ownership was associated with a roughly 10% increase in resident mortality over the period studied, a finding that's been debated, but a sobering one, even with caveats. 10%. Not in complaints, in deaths. The mechanism is the same chain as before. Debt creates pressure, pressure forces cuts, and in a nursing home, a cut isn't smaller fries. It's fewer nurses in the hallway at 3 in the morning. Or take emergency room staffing. Private equity-backed firms moved into the business of supplying ER doctors, and patients started getting enormous surprise bills because the physician who treated them was out of network, even though the hospital wasn't. You went to an in-network ER, and the doctor standing over you happened not to be covered. You didn't pick that doctor. You may not have even been conscious, but the bill arrived anyway. Federal law has since curbed a lot of these surprise bills, though the underlying staffing model is still very much around. The shape of it is consistent. Find something people badly need, take control of it, and extract. Here's the obvious objection. If all this debt is so risky, doesn't the firm eventually get burned too? Usually not, because of the last move, the exit. The whole plan has an expiration date built in from the start. The firm typically expects to own the company for roughly 5 to 7 years. Squeeze it, juice the short-term numbers, make it look healthy on paper, then sell. Often to another private equity firm or to public investors who only see the polished surface. That's the point of the timeline. The firm tends to be gone before the bill comes due, before the deferred maintenance breaks something, before the good people who quit are truly missed, before the cut corners catch up. By the time it falls apart, the firm has its money and is shopping for the next one. Someone else inherits the mess. Whose money is this, anyway? Here's a twist you might not expect. There's a real chance you're helping fund this. Where does private equity get the billions it spends? A lot of it comes from pension funds, the retirement savings of teachers, firefighters, nurses, and other public workers. Pension funds need high returns. Private equity advertises high returns, and so the savings of ordinary working people flow into the same machine that may be squeezing them at the dentist, the ER, and the nursing home. It can turn into a strange loop. Your retirement fund invests in the firm. The firm buys a business in your town. The business cuts quality and raises prices on you. You end up on both ends of it. What you're actually looking at. So come back to that restaurant, the one with the smaller portions and the missing waiter. You see a worse meal. But you can also see the structure behind it now. A firm that borrowed to buy the place, debt attached to the business, fees flowing out the top, quality stripped from the bottom, prices climbing to cover a loan you never knew existed, and an owner already eyeing the exit. The decline was real. It just wasn't random, and it wasn't only inflation. By some estimates, around 1 in 10 American workers is employed by a company that's private equity owned. And these firms collectively manage trillions of dollars. They're woven into healthcare, housing, food, pets, and elder care. Most people will spend their whole lives inside this system without ever noticing the wiring. Which raises the real question. If part of what makes this model work is that it stays invisible, if it depends on you blaming inflation or the economy or anything other than the machine itself, then what changes once you can see it? And underneath that, a harder one. When the most essential things in life, your health, your home, the care of the people you love, are built first to be extracted from and only second to actually work, who is the economy actually running for?